For most college students, the word thesis is not at all new. A thesis helps you articulate a claim that you want to make in response to a particular problem. For example, if, in your paper's introduction, you introduce the idea that while clowns are of course meant to be joyful, many people find them flat out terrifying, then you might make a claim early in your paper that goes like this. It is not so much that clowns are by themselves terrifying. Rather, the relatively recent portrayal of them in books and films as monstrous killing machines has helped create a growing fear of clowns. Alright, that's a solid claim that responds to a problem. It's a thesis. Good. So, in a thesis-driven research project, you make a claim and then you defend that claim with related examples and evidence. So the thesis really does drive the research project. Research writing to build a theory is different. Rather than let your thesis drive the project, theory building asks you to let your own questions and your own analysis drive the research writing. You don't start with a claim, with a thesis, and then work like hell to defend that claim. You start with observations and questions that will lead you to a theory about what might be going on. To really get at the way theory building works differently than writing a thesis-driven essay, it might be easiest to look at the way that many scientists work. The first thing all kinds of scientists do is watch or observe. Then they start to ask specific questions about what they're observing. The answers they get help them make interesting connections. After all that work, they posit a theory, and they write about what that theory means and what impact it has on the thing they observed in the first place. The big point here is that the theory grows from what they observe and analyze. That's different than writing a thesis and then defending that thesis at all costs. Building a theory means you have to observe, analyze, then theorize. So, let's get super specific with this clown idea. My thesis to drive the whole research project went like this. It is not so much that clowns are by themselves terrifying. Rather, the relatively recent portrayal of them in books and films as monstrous killing machines has helped create a growing fear of clowns. I could probably write plenty of paragraphs to support that thesis, arguing my case. That would be a thesis-driven research project, and it would be useful. Or I could slow down and work from the perspective of theory building. I could observe, then analyze what I observe, then take all that work and decide what it means, or build a theory. Here's what I would do from the theory building perspective. In my introduction, I'd write about noticing that people I know not only don't like clowns, they're afraid of them. I'd also write about noticing that for the most part, clowns in books and movies are super freaky, most of them murderous. I then write about noticing that this fear comes from relatively younger people. My more specific question, which I'd write in the introduction, would have to do with popular books and movies about clowns. I might ask, so to what extent does the frightening images of clowns in books like It and movies like Killjoy impact the way people perceive clowns? Now I need to do more observing that's related to my question. So I'd interview as many people as I can, hoping to get a wide range of ages. I'd read lots of articles on the relationship between fear and popular culture. Importantly, I'd write about the ways all this research connects to each other. I want my readers to see what I see. So I'd summarize my research findings so they can see it all too. I don't need them to believe something about what I'm finding. I just want them to observe all the same stuff I'm observing. Alright, let's move from observing towards some analysis. Now I'm ready to start writing about what I'm finding out might mean. For example, I write about the way I've noticed that most young people talk about clowns, which they often connect to scary movies. And I note that the way people over, say, 40 years old talk about clowns, which they often connect to circuses rather than scary movies. Still, what's interesting, I'd write, is most everybody I talk to does seem a little afraid of clowns. It's just not about popular books and movies. Still analyzing, I might then write about this one academic article that says fear of all kinds of stuff is in fact related to popular books and movies. But, and this is weird, 2 other articles say that clowns incite fear for some really wild psychological reasons that have to do with trust and carnival atmospheres, more so than popular culture. So now I'd have to decide how to write an analysis of these 2 different ideas that kind of counter each other. Okay, after all that work, I'm ready to posit a theory about what's going on here. So, I take a good look at my observations, my questions, and my analysis, and I write what I think is going on. I write my theory. So, in this example, I'd write that what's happening here is that we have a feedback loop where our own initial fears are reflected in books and movies, and that reflection strengthens our fears. I'm going to call this the reflecting terror theory, or RTT. So finally, I'd write about what this theory means for our relationship to clowns and how it might work with other strange but really popular fears. I have built a theory from the ground up. So, rather than arguing for my thesis, which sometimes means ignoring what doesn't fit into my thesis, I am able to start from the ground, from data, from what's in the world first. I gathered all that together in my writing and showed my readers what was happening. Once I decided what it all means, I created a theory to explain it as best as I could, and I showed how that theory also helps us ask new kinds of questions. What I did here is observe, analyze, and then theorize. I came alongside my reader to show them what I see and tell them what I think it means. I built a theory.